Is that live?
No. Scroll over to the right. Oh, I got you.
Hi, everybody.
Hi. Sorry, I'm just getting us
now
together on
it's actually
Instagram. Here we go. Wow. It took away my title.
Oh.
I had nice disco ball emojis and everything.
So we're live on Facebook. We're about to be live on Instagram.
Okay, we're good.
Here we go. Checking connection. Yay! Okay, so we're gonna just jibber jabber for a minute because we're gonna wait till people start jumping on.
And I also need to pull it up on my.
And it looks like you just did.
Did it?
What is this? Oh, that's the live in the 80s. You can pull it up.
Yep. Wow, it doesn't come up in our circle anymore, but here it is. Got it.
Interesting.
Every day. I had it plugged in too.
So, happy 80s, everybody.
Woo-hoo!
We're getting people starting to jump on, which I'm excited about. 3 on Instagram right now. 1 jumped on Facebook. We're going to be getting more. I'm really happy with the amount of people we're getting on this.
Yes, it's getting bigger.
And we're going to be talking about the 80s, which is a decade I am from. And, well, I was in my teen years in the 80s, so I didn't need to write a ton of stuff down because I remember a lot of it.
And this is the decade that I wish I was born in because your moms forgot about you, you had really cute outfits, and all the best songs kind of came out at the time.
And nothing is provable.
Yeah, exactly.
So I am going to tell you that we did not collaborate our shirts.
No, we literally
did
showed
not.
up and it was
We
like
showed up
this.
and we were both wearing a Breakfast Club shirt because that's, of course, a product of the 80s.
Like minds think alike.
Must be. I know, right? Isn't that hilarious? I love it. What do we have here? Yay Time Warp Tuesday.
Aw.
That would be your other half. So, anyways, hopefully I can see the ads on here.
If it gets its together, it should. We should be able to see
Hopefully.
everybody.
So if you guys have any connection issues, please let us know. So we're going to be talking about the 80s, and we could go on for 12 hours about 80s, right? Because everything that was put into motion in the 70s actually went into motion in the 80s.
And took off.
And we're talking billions of things. So we're going to keep it streamlined down to certain things that you can find here.
Yep.
Jewelry we're going to hit at another time. 80s jewelry, even though I did bring one example.
But we have so much, we're going to just make an entire show about it, just
Yeah.
so we can really get into the depths, because there's a lot that comes with 80s jewelry.
Yeah, and 70s. I think we'll combine 70s and 80s
Yeah,
together.
I think that's a good choice.
Because, they were an amalgamation of both.
It was also a huge time where styles kind of took a big shift.
They took a huge shift.
And these jeans are literally called 80s mom jeans. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, the tag when I bought them was named after that.
Do you
and these are my
understand? Do you know
favorite
why
pieces.
they were called mom jeans?
Because they hug your belly.
Because they're up above the pouch. Yeah. And usually when they say mom, they've had babies. So that's what they're trying to...
And it's trying to accentuate.
Well, not necessarily accentuate, but to keep it more actually kind of like a girdle.
Oh, okay, that makes sense.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Because you can push it in a little bit more. Plus, it's high-waisted, so
Yep.
it's pretty cool.
Heck yeah.
And there is one fashion thing that I do that I still do today. Look at this. That I still do today, and people make fun of me about it, but I don't care. I peg my pants.
Hi, Mom.
Who's that?
Your mom.
Are you on Facebook or Instagram?
Facebook.
Oh, hi, Mom. So I see nothing. Look. I wonder if they're turned off on that without realizing that.
I'm not sure, because I think that's overhead notifications, not like ones that are on live, but weird. That might be something we
No,
should
I
email
mean,
them
like,
about.
all these comments.
Touch it. Scroll down, though, from there.
I can't.
Weird.
Yeah.
I don't know.
All of a sudden, I have no comments. Anyways, but they're showing up on her phone, so that works. I still peg my pants.
Like roll them? Cuff?
Like, tighten them, roll them
Oh,
up.
yeah.
Yep, I still do that to this
Heck
day.
yeah.
I actually feel weird when I don't.
Don't, for sure. And that's me with high-waisted pants, because I just always wear high-waisted pants. And then when I don't, I feel weird.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
See, I love the blue eyeshadow.
It was giving me an excuse to actually want to wear it today, because I feel like when it's not on a day that's particularly in favor of the 80s, everyone literally looks at me and says, it's not the 80s, why are you wearing
But that's
extremely blue
okay,
eyeshadow?
because there's no reason. I mean, people tried to bring back the mullet from the 70s.
And I mean,
I'm
it did.
sorry,
It made a
but-
comeback.
Right, and if that horrifying thing can make a comeback, blue eyeshadow, which is not horrifying, well, if you use pink lipstick and the bright rouge, then maybe.
Maybe.
But, who knows? Anyways, this is 80s, this hairstyle.
No, and I love it, and I love the
If I had
hairstyle, too.
hairspray,
You could stick it
I
right
could
up.
stick it right up, and I'd be Thompson twins. Anyway, so we're going to talk about the 80s. As you can see, I've got Stonewash. We've got some outfits to show you guys.
Yes.
We've got some Did You Knows, as well as some, check that out.
brother.
Isn't that cool? Look at this. Talk about 80s. Now, this is a child's or a very small person's. But isn't that cool? 1980s. Look at that tag.
I think that thing
people.
is crazy.
Look at that tag. Isn't that crazy? WWF.
Like, no lie, if it was my size, I'd wear it now.
WWF. Look at that thing. Isn't that nuts? I love it. Now, this, like I said, is available on our Instagram page, but it's got Hulk Hogan, which is really cool, from the 80s, WWF, which is no longer, it's WWE now. And anyways, we're going to be talking about this type of stuff. So, and not just this, but other things as well. So go ahead.
Okay.
What are you going to talk about?
I guess you guys have kind of already picked up on my little routine here on Tuesdays. Well, since this is the 80s and it is my favorite, I do have some of my favorite songs here that were #1 on the charts during that time.
Okay, and I can probably tell you if they were one-hit wonders or not.
Okay. And
if I remember correctly.
You know, I'm not going to lie to you, Total Eclipse of the Heart, totally didn't know that that was the name of that song.
Oh, yeah, and didn't that come out in the 70s? No, in the 80s?
Uh-huh.
But I like that song, too.
I think the
It's like
official lyrics were written in the 70s.
It could have been. It's like Heart and Soul.
Yes, literally. Take on Me.
Aha.
Tainted
It's the
Love.
black and white, the pencil
Yep.
drawing
Yeah,
video.
which is honestly such an iconic.
And they are not a
video
one-hit
for the time.
wonder. And we probably have them over there.
Probably. We have a lot to be honest. We also
There's a lot of
put
80s.
some new ones out recently too.
Yeah.
Tainted Love, Soft Cell.
By Soft Cell. Now, who doesn't like Tainted Love? And I'm going to
Absolutely.
tell you something real quick. So, Soft Cell, I love. And Tainted Love was their biggest song ever. I was talking to the lead singer of the Meatmen,
Okay.
who Tesco V, and maybe I can get him in here one day.
That'd be sick.
And he was telling me that he knew Mark Allman, who is the lead singer of Soft Cell. And he said that talking to him one day, Soft Cell made more money off Tainted Love than they made off their entire career.
I bet.
And they're not a one-hit wonder. They have some fabulous songs out.
It's just that one just particularly happened to play everywhere on the radio, like a lot of stores.
So, what's your guys' favorite 80s music? Come on. Somebody's got to tell me your favorite 80s
David,
music.
come on. I know you have a
Now,
favorite 80s
and I know
song.
we have 80s that are on here watching, so you got to tell us your favorite 80s music, okay? Some of them are on this.
I was literally going to say we can't forget about I Just Want to Dance by Whitney Houston and Don't You by Simple Minds.
And Simple Minds, Don't You Forget About Me.
We actually have them
Don't
here too.
you? That is big time. And John Hughes did that. I mean, he picked the best music for his movies. Speaking of which, Breakfast Club, John Hughes, 1980s.
I swore we had a Simple Minds potion on here.
We
It must
did
have
have
sold.
it. It may have. What's it on the back of this?
That's what I was thinking.
No. It may have sold. So, Simple Minds, which, big song.
Yeah, no, honestly, and The Breakfast Club is, I know it's a very trendy, good movie, but I grew up on that, and a lot of, if our viewers don't know me, my parents, they grew up in the 50s, so a lot of the things that they liked influenced me growing up, and that's why I love working here, and I know a lot of these songs and artists and movies and stuff, and The Breakfast Club, even still to this day, is one of my all-time favorite movies. I feel like it's a great thing.
So also, shoot out your favorite 80s movie.
Yeah.
You know, one of my favorite 80s songs is OMD. Is OMD's. It just left my head, so I guess it wasn't that favorite. Oh my goodness, it left my head.
We can't forget about the Bangles.
Oh, the Bangles?
Yes, one
You're
of my
talking
favorites.
about Walk Like an Egyptian?
Heck yeah.
Mhm. So, a couple of things that I wanted to show you and talk about is the 80s not only spawned a ton of music, it changed the way we looked at music, it changed the way we sold music, the way we bought music, it changed all of that. You've got cassettes that were really popular at the time, but in the 80s, towards the late 80s, CDs started to make inch their way in. So isn't this cool? Now this is Madonna. This is
And Instagram, I'll be over to you in just a second.
1984. Rolling Stones Madonna with Tom Wolfe on the cover.
Like, look at this typograph.
And I love it because right on the front it says Suburban Death Trap. Isn't that hilarious?
All right, I gotta show you guys this.
Between that and then, of course, I grew up with listening to The Boss because my mother loved Bruce Springsteen.
Lucky Strikes.
Yep. Loved Bruce Springsteen, so I grew up listening to Bruce Springsteen as well at home. But, you know, one thing I can tell you about, and you know what, jump in, you guys, and say something about this if you agree or if you thought that it was not that way, because in Southern California, growing up in San Diego, like I did, there were cliques.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, there were cliques, and then there was cliques within genres. So the clique you hung out with listened to a certain type of music, and there was no crossover.
Of course.
There was no crossover. So if you were like New Wave, like Thompson Twins and stuff like that, you pretty much could hang out with punk rockers, stuff like that, because they all like that type of music. But don't step foot into the hair bands or the heavy metal, because then they start thinking, "Ooh, you're listening to that music." When, you know, silently, we were all probably in the bedroom listening to "Smoking in the Boys' Room" by Motley Crue and "Home Sweet Home."
Of course.
And because there were some good songs that came out. Poison.
And I mean, dude, there were so many iconic, great songs that came out at the time. I know you guys had to have crossed over a little bit, because you can't tell me that you've heard the beginning of, I don't know.
Of Def Leppard's.
And you're telling me you didn't bop your head just a little bit?
Rock of Ages. Ooblen, Eaglen, I can't do it, but we all know it, right? And of course, because, you know, that's why I like music today better, because my genre that I listen to is talent.
Period.
And that can cross all genres. Am I in agreement here? You are. It's got to be talent, because there's so much non-talent out there that people are making millions off them that I just want to fall over and die.
And it's pure auto-tune.
I know, it's crazy. They used to use auto-tune and stuff like that in the 80s as enhancements to songs.
Exactly. Not
Speaking of which, who remembers this? What year are we talking about?
I think.
Nope, it was a little bit later than 83. I'm going to say 85.
Yeah, it was 83.
Oh, 83?
Yep.
Okay, so 83 because, you know, I'm old. So, Thriller. Thriller by Michael Jackson, and I don't care if you don't like him or if you love him or if you hate him or whatever, you cannot deny the fact that the man's got talent.
Absolutely.
Right? And Thriller, the #1 biggest seller of all time.
What's your favorite Michael Jackson song?
My favorite? Okay, let's talk about Michael Jackson songs. Probably it would be Him by Himself.
Yes. Like as an adult.
Well, yeah. There's so many. It spans so many, because one of my favorite songs is Ebony and Ivory, Michael Jackson, and Beatles. The lead singer of the Beatles, Paul McCartney. But that's a 70s song. No, early 80s. It was 81, 82. Ebony and Ivory.
And this doesn't even have to be a song. This is just overall.
You missed all the cool stuff, David.
All of them.
All of it. No,
I need you to tell me what your favorite 80s song is.
So my favorite song by is probably going to be, I don't want to say Bad, because that's everybody's. I did love the music in Bad, but I'm trying to think of the name of it. The one where he morphed all the faces together.
Oh my God, Black or White.
Thank you. I love that
That's
song.
my favorite song. I love that. And I also like Man in the Mirror too. That's probably my two favorite songs.
But I mean, I like older. The music behind the songs on that album were ridiculous.
Yes, and you want to know why? It's because a lot of people, and it sucks because I'm in my prime age of it being 2023, but there was actual real true talent then. Like, people were actually giving it their all in order to achieve stardom.
Oh yeah, you had to.
But it didn't matter what you looked like. And I mean, don't get me wrong, there was still some artists who were getting ridiculed behind the scenes. No, right, yeah. But as soon as like Vitiligo happened for him, his entire life changed.
He went a little overboard though.
He did for sure.
Mm-hmm. He went, and his sister is starting to go overboard. Because I loved Rhythm Nation back then.
Yes, and if she just put something out back like that, I feel like she would be in a happier spot.
Janet Jackson, I know you're watching.
We love you.
And if you're not, you better be.
You need to.
So let's hear an upbeat, fun dance album from you.
Literally.
But Michael Jackson's Thriller, not only did he change music based on this, but he changed the way videos were done. He did the 17-minute video. He did Thriller.
Yep.
He single-handedly probably introduced zombieism back into this society.
And another cool thing, too, is that he was one of the first music videos to ever debut on MTV. One of them, for sure.
So what was the first one?
Oh, crap. I swore I might have had that written down.
The video killed the radio star.
Yes.
Yep, the Buggles. And, did I say it right? Yeah, the
yes.
Buggles. So, It debuted in '83. I think I had it in order, but then I lost my order. And I lost 2 pages. So MTV looks like it appeared, because I can't remember everything. I wish I could. So MTV appeared 1981.
Wow.
Yes, with Video Killed the Radio Stars and Buggles. And then Michael Jackson was the first African American to be played
Debut.
on MTV. There was a huge ruckus because they weren't playing a lot of black people when they needed to. And so Michael Jackson and Whitney Houston were some of the first ones. Now, Whitney Houston, I love her to death. I love her voice. I love everything like that. The girl didn't write a lick of music.
No, literally.
But I loved her voice.
I mean, could you blame them? There were so many people who could write songs and said, you'd sound so much better singing this than me.
And then you've got, like, Depeche Mode. You've got, like, Yaz. You've got, like, you know, Guns N' Roses started in the 80s.
Heck
You've
yeah.
got, I mean, some of the most iconic bands in the world started in the 80s, if not the late 70s.
And this isn't a mainstream band, but if my mom is watching, Uncle Matt's 80s hair band was called Sweet Tease, but like Tease.
Right.
And like they had massive hair, and I always
Yeah, that
loved
was
it as a
big.
kid.
Aquanet.
Yeah.
So I remember many a times, and we're not going to only talk about music because trust me, I could. But we're Toto, Africa. Yeah,
Of course. That is not what David wrote. Come on, I was going to say there are so many more other than that.
But he liked that.
That's like the only one he probably knows.
Don't
off
make
the top
fun
of
of his music. Although I do know the song, but America's "Walking Through the Desert on a Horse with No Name" is the best.
That sounds like a.
And that's the 70s. So anyways, let me tell you a few other things that happened in the 80s, which was pretty cool. First of all, Mount St. Helens. Okay, Mount St. Helens in Washington State exploded it erupted, I should say, in, all right, write the year down. Look at that. No, 1980. It erupted in 1980. Now, nobody died in Mount St. Helens when it erupted, but it killed thousands, tens of thousands of animals, as well as eradicated complete species, right, off the face of the earth of trees and fauna.
So I'm so stupid. Where is?
Don't ever
Where
say
is?
that, 'cause you're not.
Where's Mount St. Helens?
Washington State.
Okay.
Yeah, Washington State. And ironically, I actually had something from Mount St. Helens.
He was on a mission.
So look at this, Mount St. Helens ash. Oops, there you are. See, Mount St. Helens ash. And it says right on it, 1980. So, you know, Mount St. Helens ash. So this stuff, see it? But this is actual Mount St. Helens ash. And you could probably still get it. So Mount St. Helens, the entire side of the volcano collapsed.
So is this like a volcano that's no longer active? Or
Oh no, it's active.
Oh, really?
I think it's still active. There's dormant. Hawaii has dormant volcanoes and active volcanoes. A volcano sits dormant until it's active.
No, for sure.
I mean, there could be magna built up unless they can prove there's no magna below the earthquake.
Then no one's ever going to know.
Then nobody's ever going to know, and they can with sonar. But I don't know 100%. If you know if Mount St. Helens is still active, let us know.
David said he's going to check for us.
Awesome. But I remember when it went off.
Really?
Yeah, and the ash that fell, it's no joke. It covers everything.
I was going to say, did that affect the United States like it did?
Oh, the weather.
Like Canadian wildfires are.
Oh,
affecting us
yeah.
now?
When something like that goes crazy, it's Canada times 10.
10? Dang.
So all the area in Washington and around that, and if my cousin's on, they live in Washington State, pop on or shoot us a message. You lived up there when Mount St. Helens erupted, I believe. If I remember correctly, I can't remember. I
Glad they're
don't know if I did. I think you
alive.
did. Well, they were in Seattle.
Okay.
Outside of Seattle. So Mount St. Helens is not far from there, but it covers the entire sky. You
No,
can't see
yeah.
it, so it was awful. It was
Dang.
awful. Scared everybody to death. But we have a little bit of ash. Isn't that hilarious? I loved it. So, did you know about hacky sacks? And the reason I'm talking about hacky sacks, do all of you know what a hacky sack is? A hacky sack is one of those things that you play with your foot, like that, which I never could do in the 80s.
Me
and still
neither. I can't do it now. I try and I get really frustrated.
So, growing up next to the ocean, hacky sacks were big in surfers, right? Surfers loved them. If they weren't in the water surfing, they were playing hacky sacks. And did you know about hacky sacks? Is a lot of people think they were invented and used in the 80s when actually 80s made them extremely popular.
Wow.
In the 80s. They actually have been around since 1000 BCE.
Wow.
In China, the emperor, I'm going to say his name wrong, Wang Tai, I think? Emperor Wang Tai. Wang Tai, I said it right. Emperor Wang Tai used to spend his time, it would help him think, to kick around a little bag full of hair. And so that is when hacky sacks were actually invented, but in the 80s they became really popular with the surfers and then spread across, and there's hacky sack tournaments and everywhere. So we do have some more modern hacky sacks. This is Detroit Red Wings.
Yep.
So you can put it on your keychain, and when you're waiting in line for tickets or to get in, take it off and play hacky sack. So, you have a did you know?
I actually did not get one for today, which
Here, I'll give you one of these. Can you read my handwriting? Okay, let's talk about the Walkman.
Okay.
So, Walkman. We get asked for Walkman all the time. Walkman goes over your ears.
Mount St. Helens is actually the most active volcano in the United States.
No, probably in the continental United States. Because the most active volcano is on the big island of Hawaii. So it's probably the most active in the continental United States.
Okay.
Only because the one in Hawaii constantly erupts. I mean, constantly flows.
Flows, yeah.
So, that I'm assuming, unless they consider there's more lava below it than there is below the other one.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Hopefully, we can figure it out later.
What was I saying? I lost my train of thinking. Anyway, so earlier today, I showed pictures of myself in the 80s to Jasmine, and I was head to toe.
In this striped sweater that I need in my life.
Well, that striped sweater, yes, but I was head to toe when I was ice skating with Sandy, with my friend Sandy.
In acid wash?
In all acid wash,
I love
high-waisted jeans that had the flaps.
Yes!
They had the flaps
pockets.
on them. No, they weren't even pockets, they were flaps. So
oh, really? They were just...
What it was the pants, you had the belt loop, and then the pants came up into points, and they flipped over the belt.
That's lit.
Yeah, they were pretty cool. So I was head to toe in acid wash, stone wash. This was huge in the 80s.
Yeah, it was.
And this is an actual 80s jacket.
Oh, wow. That's very cute. I love it.
And if you look correctly, the reason that they were so popular, too, was take a look at the inside of this thing.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Look at the inside of this thing.
That was your accessory. You didn't need nothing else
Nope.
with that.
And so the inside of this thing is fantastic. Plus, it's poofy. It gives you warmth. And not only that, it's really stylish because it's got the cinched back.
And you don't even have to worry about sweating in it because you got that nice fabric liner.
Yes, that keeps it. We wore these like crazy. And when we weren't wearing these, we were wearing probably made up stuff because I was a little punk rocker with Mohawk.
And you could design your own clothes, which is honestly super sick.
So we're talking about fashion, and we're talking, and like I said, we're gonna talk about jewelry later. But Perry Ellis and the Windbreaker was big.
Here, I'll hold them for you while you talk.
Right, Perry Ellis and the Windbreaker. So we have a ton of 80s windbreakers, you guys. And this one, as you can see, it's got the writing completely across the chest, which is pretty cool. And then Perry Ellis across the back. But these were big in the 80s. We wore them all the time. We got so many of these. Aren't they cool? They're so cool. Now, this is Perry Ellis, which was big. And Perry Ellis was actually a high brand back then. So it cost a lot. And then, chunky wood jewelry with the parrots, that was big. But we'll get more, not for the guy, for the girl. And then, of course, rosaries because of Madonna.
And we have so many rosaries.
We do. But we'll talk about 80s jewelry and how to accessorize an 80s outfit. Yes, use chains and safety pins. Actually, that's funny you say that because my friend Sandy, who probably is watching, she bought this. It was a stonewash jacket. She bought it at a thrift store back then because her and I always went to thrift stores.
Heck yeah. And
then she cut and she tore the sleeves off and then put them back on with safety pins.
Yeah, that's lit.
And then buttons all over it. I loved it. Sandy was a trendsetter on that aspect. I mean, she had the big, huge mohawk, and she was a lot of fun. Speaking of fashion, we talked about that. And then here's just a couple more, because color block. Color block started in the 80s, you guys.
And it's my favorite thing to dress like.
Okay, color of Benetton,
Uh-huh.
which are sweaters and stuff. When somebody kept asking for 90s and 80s clothing, I just went home and grabbed a bunch of my clothing that I had. And I had like color of Benetton sweaters and different, you know, like Huxtable sweaters.
Yes.
And stuff
Coogee
like that.
sweaters.
Coogee sweaters, yes. And stuff like that. So I went home and got them and brought them in, and they all flew off the day.
Heck yeah.
But, you know, Tommy Hilfiger, right? Tommy Hilfiger, known for his color block. This is not necessarily a color block, but it is kind of, because it's got all the colors, but a true color block would be like this, where it's in blocks.
And now color blocking means like if you were to wear like, and I love how it changed over like the decades too. If you're wearing like a dress that has pink and purple flowers all over it, but it only has little tiny green flowers, you wear like all green accessories.
Oh yeah,
so
you did that in the 80s.
Heck yeah.
Yep. And then of course Nautica, original Nautica, and Guess. Guess was big as well.
And Guess is honestly one of my favorite brands, like ever, like name brand. I would pick them over like Hermes, Coach, all of them, because Guess has been around for so long.
So Lisa Anderson on here, that's Steve's sister.
Oh, hi Steve's sister.
So color block and Nautica, Perry Ellis, and Tommy Hilfiger were big. They were huge. Okay, so that's for the guys. And then of course I didn't bring them over here, but the Vans.
Do you want me to grab them?
No, they're up there. The sweater and the hat.
Oh,
and
I'm
stuff.
sorry. I thought you were talking about shoes.
So the Vans, the Van shoes, the Van sweaters, the Van hats, that was big.
Like Vans off the wall.
Yep, that was big. And we have a ton of those. So let's talk about women. Fashion in the 80s for women. And we're not going to talk about Madonna. Because everybody talks about Madonna when it comes to fashion in the 80s because they are used to all of the rosaries, the tutus, the crinolines, with the lingerie, with the frayed out hair and the bracelets and stuff like that. We all know that. So let's talk about Alexis Carrington and Dynasty. Right? Look at this. So this, which is one of her favorite pieces, is the epitome of the severe 80s woman's business suit.
Like, I don't know why it's the big shoulders. It's the very, like this
It
one
reminds you
is,
of Prince.
this would be very flattering. You
Yes.
know what I'm saying?
Yep. And this is a two-piece. So there is a skirt that goes with this. And I will show you. So this, and if you've ever seen Dynasty, oops, it's still on.
Yep, here you go.
Okay, if you've ever seen Dynasty or Knots Landing or any of that, but mostly Dynasty, Alexis Carrington, which was played by Joan Collins.
Here,
It's
why
still
are we
on
why are
something.
we still caught here? Okay, now pull.
All right, so you would have your tiny little skirt, right? Your tiny little skirt that you would have. Then you would pair it with a nice white ruffly shirt underneath, probably, kind of like Prince, like I like saying, or a very loose, like maybe boat neck underneath, and then you would pair it off with this severe V, because what you're creating is the V.
Right.
So you have the shoulder pads, which make your shoulder very, and then it comes down into a V. Kind of like a zoot suit look from back in the day. But women wore these in the 80s, and they were women's business suit. So these are iconic when it comes to 80s.
Absolutely. I mean, come on, look at it. It's
nutty.
beautiful.
Isn't that crazy? I do love the color, but look at those arms. Look at those arms. Yes, members only. I hunted for a members only jacket. I was so devastated that I didn't find one to show you because we carry them all the time, but we are sold out of members only.
Aw.
Well, every time I get one, it flies
They
out the
sell
door.
immediately.
Yes, but Lisa, I think you should wear this to work from now on.
I agree.
Then we have the other side of the coin, and we have sweater dresses, which were big.
So cute.
Sweater dresses were huge, right? Then we have the fun, colorful fish.
With the 3D beads.
With the 3D beads and stuff like that, you know, very 80s. And I'm getting into the Goldbergs aspect, kind of. And then, of course, your jumpsuits.
Love.
Which is color block. This is a color block jumpsuit. And what I mean, I'll get that in a minute, is the V in the back that opens is pink. Isn't that crazy? You gotta love it. For this, yes, with the wide belt, maybe a wide yellow belt would be fantastic with this. And it's so colorful at that point. It's fantastic.
And the inside.
It's funny because when people comment on here,
It comes from the bottom.
no, it pops up here.
That's from Facebook. It's it's literally telling you on your phone that you're getting a notification from Facebook.
So this jumpsuit, how many of you seen
Steve
the
said
Goldbergs?
there is one over there near the shiny black jacket I showed the other day.
Oh, really? Okay, so she will talk for a second. You can use my paper too.
Oh, cool.
I will see if I can find one.
So, one thing that we didn't really get to talk about that happened in 1980 was Richard Pryor set himself on fire. I honestly didn't have too much time to research that full story on why he did it or if it was during a show or not. But yeah, that was crazy. And then shortly after that, unfortunately, we lost Bob Marley. And also in the same year of 1981, Pope John Paul II survives the assassination attempt, which I felt like was also a super crazy time and an extremely devastating event that took place. Nice.
Members only. Thank you, Steve. Members only. Members only jacket. But because he said them, I had to show these. These are 80s, and these are shiny.
Yeah.
Aren't they fantastic, guys? You got to own them. Come get them. So, Pope John Paul.
Yeah.
You know Chernobyl happened, too.
The
meltdown,
that's also so
Chernobyl
crazy.
happened.
Three-eyed fish.
Yes.
Prince Charles and Lady Diana, they got married.
The royal wedding of the world was
Literally.
1981. Was everybody stopped and watched it in the middle of the night here? Well, I think it was early morning, actually.
Early morning, for sure.
Westminster Abbey. Princess Diane in that white dress.
And
Charles.
I loved her. She was so pretty.
And, you know, ironically, I bet Carmilla was sitting in the audience.
Sure.
But then Diana, you know, she passed away in the 90s on my birthday.
1983, Sally Ride became the first woman to ever take a trip out to space. 1983, we talked about Thriller, and this one honestly became super near and dear to my heart, and I honestly want to read more about this. In 1985, we discovered the first hole in our ozone layer, and that was above Antarctica.
Yes.
I felt like that's something that a lot of people talk about and or know about. The last two are 1987, Prozac goes on sale, and it becomes the #1 antidepressant in the world, even still to this day.
And you know what? Can I add to that?
Sure.
So Prozac was when?
1987.
He works for us. Hold on. Can you go see what he wants?
Absolutely.
Thanks. It's our. Tell him we're filming a show. We usually do.
Jason, this has been here in our office for a while. It's for you guys.
When's it from?
I think it's Consumers Energy.
I know, but this month, right?
What's that?
From this month?
Sorry.
Okay, we're live. So.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's not your fault. That's all right. I'll take care of it.
Gotcha, no problem.
Thank you, though. So, anyways, that would be our landlord dropping off something. Can you look at the date of that?
Yep.
So, anyways, some of the things that we didn't talk about on the 80s, CDs started, of course, we did talk about that. Okay, so Prozac. So, Ronald Reagan in the 80s was president, right? And he did something that, when I look back upon, I don't know if I agree on now. Back then, I was only 10 years old, so I don't know.
Next month on the 3rd.
Okay, so it's not late.
No.
Oh, okay. So what happened is he decided to close the insane asylums and allow people out.
Which honestly, that's so crazy.
I know.
So does that mean that he took responsibility if
No.
any of those?
So anyways, there's more to that, but I just think about that and then I think about what's happening today and maybe we should have kept them in there.
We can't forget about
So,
CDs. They were released in 1988, but then they shortly took a plummet in the late 90s.
Yeah. They actually didn't grab hold till the probably 90s.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah. And then we have a lot of stuff. TWA Flight 847.
The Soviet Union began to collapse.
Yeah, Gorbachev took over.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Sandra Day O'Connor was the very first lady voted to the Supreme Court.
Super cool.
Yeah.
Now, earlier you told me you were going to tell me a lot about calculators.
Oh, let's talk about calculators, shall we?
And
Sorry
honestly,
about that little intrusion, you guys.
He was so precious. He felt so bad.
I
His
know,
face
isn't he
got all
nice?
red.
I love him.
I want this calculator.
You used to steal Steve's what? Calculator? Anyways, let's talk about calculators.
The
How many
jackets
on here actually would get in trouble for having a calculator at school? I'll raise my hand.
Emojis.
And how about some hearts and stuff, since we only get them when she does them?
Which I'm about to do right now.
So, anyways, when I went to high school, and I graduated 87, 88, and
That's so lame. They're not even coming up.
nothing's coming up on that on Facebook. Isn't that weird? I must have something turned off because I can't see
Here, let's-
anything else either.
Let's see here.
Like, here's members only. Now they're showing up, but not like they used to.
No, weird. We'll have to
Anyways,
look into that.
I don't know. Yes, we will. So, you could not bring it. You had to learn how to do math in your head and break it down on paper.
Brutal.
And so, if you had any type of device that could help you, you would either A, fail that class, or B, fail that test.
Yeah, literally.
And they would take it away from you.
And imagine how that would be like.
So, having a calculator when I went to school was a big no-no. They wanted you to be able to leave that class being able to do that math in your head.
Crazy.
Okay,
Couldn't
so
imagine
today,
that.
well, let's see. You graduated in what year?
16.
In 2016. This was required, wasn't it? Actually,
Yeah.
the laptop was.
The laptop, and they even wrote it on like your symbol list that you need that.
So let me ask you, as somebody who graduated high school using calculators and tablets, can you do math in your
I'm
head?
horrible at math.
But I mean, not everybody is good at math, rather, regardless of how you're
Can I?
trained.
Yeah, I can do math in my head, but that's because my parents are also 7
True.
years old.
True. Because I knew people back then who did math and still couldn't grasp
I
it.
guess-
But
I
yet
guess-
they could write a book in 2 seconds.
For sure, and I guess it also comes down to like the simple like human feeling of like I would really be embarrassed if I couldn't do basic math in my head. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, I wish everybody felt that way. Low battery.
We
So,
still have 10%. We're good.
So calculators are a thing of the past, or are a thing of the future, actually. The calculators back then, even if you had the little stick things that held your pencils that did the math for you, because you could do that,
What?
or you had abacus or something like that. And for those of you who don't know, an abacus is what people use before calculators, before any of that.
Is that the little
It almost looks like a.
We have one.
Yeah, it almost looks like a
game?
scorekeeper.
Yeah.
Yeah,
literally.
but it's an abacus where you take this and move it this way, this move this way,
Yeah.
this left. Yeah. So, so yeah, we couldn't use them.
Dang.
And when you got into high school or college and you were into quantum systems or you know, any of the higher end math, they sometimes allowed you to use them only on the basis of when you started to break things into
Sure.
I don't want to get too complicated, but into different ways. So, anyways, yeah. Isn't that weird how the generations change that way?
And like how they became absolutely not regulated to you absolutely need them and it's mandatory.
Right. It was a lot stricter going to school back in the 70s and 80s.
So I guess even though I wasn't around to even experience it, I guess I'm just a little sad that I never got to experience Halloween in the 80s.
Why?
Because I feel like every time I look at old photos like that we have from here, or if I see them like online or something, the costumes were handmade and they looked so scary.
Yes. All the costumes, most of the costumes were handmade.
And like they just looked scary because they were like handmade and they like,
Yeah.
you know, like not everything was like big and overdone and gaudy to
No.
the point where it doesn't look scary. It was like, dude, like.
Oh yeah, and if you had parents like me in the 70s, where my father was, you know, very artistic, he was a hairdresser, so he created costumes
Your costumes,
for us.
yeah, I bet.
They were pretty intense, and some of his were too. And were they always politically correct? Probably not. And so,
We also can talk about American Psycho, even though that came out in 2000, it's based on the 80s.
yeah, but it was based off an actual event, right?
Yeah,
That happened in the 80s.
yes.
What was the event it was based off?
Do they have an actual title for it?
Oh, I don't know.
It was mostly just like, I don't know if you want to say that it was based on a true story, but some of it, I believe, is based on a true story.
Call to action, Ronald Reagan. Only because I just mentioned it.
Yeah.
So, pop icons, pop culture was big back then. So when you dealt with furniture and you dealt with home goods, you dealt with paint splatter, stuff like that. I'm gonna grab something from over here.
Okay. Those were my favorite.
Yeah.
Now, if I just had a spot to put them, they'd be in my house already.
I'm not gonna be able to get them off, but these were big. This type of pop culture was big with the different colors and stuff. And this is Micasa's Ultima.
Super strong, fine china.
It is, but I would use it every day because of the 80s decor that's on it. Very asymmetrical.
It's also
very
freezer to oven
colorful.
and microwave safe, dishwasher proof, and chip resistant.
Yep. In the 80s, we had dishwashers. And then, of course, we all remember E.T. E.T. came out. E.T. came out. And now I have other E.T. stuff, but like books and stuff, but all of the stuffed animals. And what do I have down here that we're missing? Oh, telephones. Let's talk about telephones. Well, first of all, here's another 80s pattern. Here's another 80s pattern with all the different. Isn't that cool? Yes, fabulous eye makeup. Stuff like that.
Thank you.
Huh?
Oh, I said, oh, thank you.
So, donut phones.
Hello.
And one of the things about the 80s was all of the different ways you could use phones, because we still were not with cell phones. Cell phones didn't come out until the 90s, until the late 90s. And most people didn't own a cell phone until 2000. So...
Do you remember begging your mom for a longer cord so you could take this with you and walk around the house?
Yes, or you just disappeared.
Yeah.
Into a closet or something.
Yeah, literally.
But donut phones were big. Phones, fun phones. This is a phone.
I just honestly miss, because my mom still had a phone like this when I was a kid, and I used to love hanging up on people like this.
And these come in all different colors.
Because you would hear this, on the other end of
Oh, yeah. There's an actual app that you can do that now.
Really?
Yeah, and you can buy phone handsets that plug into your phone.
That's so funny.
So,
need.
Novelty phones were a big thing.
Uh-huh.
And as you can see, it's a phone, right? You can see it's a phone. Novelty phones were huge. They, and one of the cool things in the 80s was if you were watching a movie, and we've had those invisible phones, meaning that you can see through them.
What?
But if you're watching a movie and the phone is redunculous, it's just gorgeous and cool and fun. It's a big lip phone or something. You could buy that phone.
Did they advertise it after the movie?
Oh, it would be put into stores because the 80s was mass merchandising.
Gotcha.
A lot of the reason we have as much trash we have today is because of the 80s.
Really?
Oh, yes. We went out. When Clinton became president, I'm not going to pretend I know the politics of the 80s because I was a teenager, and when you're a teenager, you don't care about the politics.
Right.
So, but I know that the United States had one of the largest growths during that time period, and it was all based off from product. It was mass merchandising, buy as much as you can, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So that's why in the 80s, mass merchandising became so massive because people were going out and they were buying everything they could get their hands on. They were mortgaging things.
Lisa said Sports Illustrated and the football phone.
Yes, Sports Illustrated was popular in the 80s. However, Sports Illustrated actually came out in the 60s, 50s. But it became hugely successful in the 80s, of course, because no internet. So that's how the guys got their sports fixes.
What was the least thing that you enjoyed about the 80s growing up?
That's a good question. The least thing I enjoyed about the 80s growing up. That's a hard question for me because the 80s was so integral in my life.
Sure.
And when we do the show on MAD on the 1st, you'll understand why. So the 80s was an awakening for me. It was opening my eyes to friendship, to creating friendships that last forever. I know almost every single person I hung out with back then,
which
went
is
to
so
school
cool.
with back then, that I still talk to today. What would be? I guess I would have to say the drugs.
Sure.
Drugs were plentiful. Drugs.
What was the war on drugs?
The war on drugs was the 80s.
Okay.
That's when Bush I can't remember her name, did the war on drugs. And I should have done a little research on that for that. But this is your brain on drugs. All of that type of stuff happened in the 80s. Drugs were prevalent. Drugs were becoming huge. manufactured drugs.
Now, I know this is like
designer drugs were started.
Oh, for sure. And this is like a really stupid question because obviously everyone that I've asked usually has the same answer. Do you feel like the war on drugs was 100% planned?
What do you mean planned?
Like they specifically put drugs into the street for people to take in order for them to.
I don't think so, and I think that when we look at situations that, and it's possible, but I don't think so. Because when you look at situations like that, I would hate to think that somebody would do that to get kids hooked on drugs by doing that.
But would you be surprised?
I would be surprised. And I would be surprised because you're dealing with children.
Sure.
And I could see them doing something like that with adults. Because they did in the 50s and 60s with LSD. You know what I mean? But the drugs, I don't know if they purposely put them on. If they did, those people should be shot. But because I had my horrible time on drugs in the 80s.
Sure.
And, you know, I always tell somebody always asks me, what do you regret about your past? I regret not one damn thing because everything I did in my past
made you who you are today.
Made me who I am today.
Absolutely.
I may have done things differently, but I don't regret them. Mm-hmm. And because when you start regretting things in your past, it becomes too much.
Absolutely. And I always tell myself, even this...
You can't change it.
Exactly. And same thing goes, like the future you can't change, but some of it is just fate, so you can't.
But the past you can.
Absolutely.
So own it and move.
Exactly.
I don't care what it is, and the thing is I can own all of my past because you can't prove it. There was nothing going on. So would I love to be a teenager today? No. Yes, because the technology's great, the stuff like that.
But it's honestly horrible.
It's this.
I feel like if I was younger than what I am now, like if I was like 15, 16 right now, I would hate my life. Because everything is so reliant on social media and the internet.
Yes.
And like, it like sucks that like I look at younger pictures of either myself or even actual photos taken from the 80s and other families. Everyone just looks so genuinely happy. Now I feel like everything is just kind of like, okay, we're taking a picture, we have to look happy.
Oh, it is, because it's all about looking how, okay, there was a term in the 80s and stuff, keeping up with the Joneses. And that happened a lot, because if the neighbor got it, this neighbor wanted it. If this, you know what I mean? And that did happen back then. But I don't know if, because I was a teenager, I didn't really pay attention to what adults were doing with each other. But we are humans, and humans don't change.
Right.
So, in other words, I mean, we are just, it's instigated into us that we have to be better than the person next to us, that we have to be, you know what I mean? It's all, that those thoughts happen.
No, they do. They're inevitable.
We just have to know how to control it.
Absolutely.
And even though we talk about some of the things that happen today that are difficult and hard and we hate and whatever, 80s was not without its problems.
Oh, absolutely, because the CDC actually started taking the AIDS epidemic seriously.
Well, and I'm going to tell you, it was one of the main factors in a lot of the...
I just kept stepping on it, and I didn't want it behind
a
me.
lot of the disparagement towards gay and lesbians.
Which is super unfortunate, because I feel like if they would have just...
By the way, 1981, the very first AIDS case was discovered in New York City, I believe, or somewhere over there. And then by 1984, it was a worldwide pandemic. Which,
again, I'm not like, oh, this is great, we had a super huge epidemic. But it's also like, if the CDC would have just listened to their patients and their symptoms and the issues that they were going through with their partner or vice versa, I feel like the AIDS epidemic could have been not controlled or taken away. But I feel like at least they would have at least put a more effort into finding resources for these people.
Well, absolutely. And if you watch the movie Philadelphia, which aired in the 80s, if you watch the movie Philadelphia with Tom Hanks, you will understand a lot of it. It is a tragic movie, but it does explain a lot of what they were thinking during the time.
Sure.
Does that make it good? No.
No.
Watch A Longtime Companion and you'll never watch another gay movie again. It's the most
Oh my God, no,
movie.
you did tell me about that.
Yeah.
That honestly made me really sad. I did not want to watch it.
And also, you know, being an open gay man in the 80s, because I came right out and I just said it. You know what I mean?
As you should.
A lot of people looked at it, oh, that's a fad. Because 80s was all about the fads, okay? Anytime anything happened, oh, it's a fad. You'll go through the fad. Oh, it's a fad. Oh, it's a fad.
Right.
And so you'd be hit both ways. Like, I used to have a friend, rest his soul, he has passed away, who would make fun of me saying, you are just doing it to be like everybody else. Well, it's been 45 years. So that fad is still going.
He's still going, right?
You know what I mean? A love-hate relationship. Because back in the 80s, you didn't just dump a friend because you got in arguments or
Oh,
they
for
said something
sure.
mean. This person, and I don't want to say his name on air because even though he's passed away, there's mutual friends. We hated each other, but yet always called each other and did stuff together.
Because, like, I feel like life now...
Because we're kids.
Well, it's also that, but also I feel like back then people had a true, clear understanding of you don't have to like what I like and I don't have to like what you like in order for us to still be friends.
Right.
But now it's like, you don't like the color purple? It's my favorite color. We can
Right.
never be friends.
Right, and I think that's what's happening in the political world.
It is, for sure.
Yeah, just a different of opinion. To some, consider it as a slight to them. Some of the other things. Oh, first of all, this I did not know. Here's another did you know about Walkmans. Okay, so we do carry Walkmans. They go quick, you guys. And so when Superman won, I believe that was 80. I can't remember, 77 to 80, somewhere around there. Superman 1 came out. There was a scene in it where Clark Kent was wearing a headset. Okay, and they called it a Walkman. But in reality, the Walkman was called, in America, the Soundabout.
I love that.
And in the UK, it was called Stowaway.
I also like that too.
Okay, so when Superman came out, and this I did not know, when Superman came out, everybody just started calling it the Walkman.
Walkman?
So it was all changed to the Walkman.
Wow.
Across the world. So Superman actually changed the name of the Walkman.
That's honestly super cool.
And another did you know, which I thought was cool, Miss Pac-Man, which came out in 1980, 84, 2 years after Pac-Man came out. And so Pac-Man was the first female lead in a video game.
That's lit. I didn't know that.
And when they did, when they promoted her and they did the advertisements for her, she was referred to as the femme fatale of video game.
What does that mean, fatale?
Then it's the fatal beauty.
Oh, nice.
Femme fatale is fatal beauty.
Is that why
So-
they made her have legs and wear high heels and have a
Well, in
ball
the
of
game
lipstick?
she doesn't.
No, right.
Right. Well, they had to put her into a person. That's why
yeah.
they put legs on Pac-Man. But yeah, she was the femme fatale of video games.
That's honestly super duper cool. I did not know that.
And she's considered the first woman to make a starring role in a video game.
Wow! Yay
Yep.
for you, Miss Pac-Man.
Yep, it was Miss Pac-Man. The same creator as Pac-Man. I forgot his name. Also, Geraldine Fiara was the very first woman to run for vice president.
Oh wow! The 80s was a decade for women.
So we talked about the Titanic, right?
Yes.
And we've done many shows, talked about the Titanic, and
Yes,
of course we
Lisa.
had what?
She said, "Go, Miss Pac-Man!" Woohoo!
Yep. And we had that unfortunate event that happened with the submarine, with the Titanic.
Recently.
But in 1985 was the first time eyes were set on the Titanic since it went down.
So,
They found it in the water. It was lost. They didn't know where it was.
which is like, where did they think it would go?
They followed the line. They couldn't find it because of how deep it is.
Oh, because it literally just like was floating and then it just bloop.
Yep, it went down. And so we did not, I mean, you're talking about the from 19...
How old were you when that happened?
When what happened?
When they found the Titanic?
When they found it, I was 15, 14.
Lit.
But
Was that
I'm trying
something
to
y'all
think.
talked about
Okay,
at
so
school?
it took its maiden voyage in 1912, I think it is. 12, 13, somewhere. So from the 19-teens all the way up to 1985, we did not have the technology to find that thing.
Right.
Okay, I mean, we started to get the technology, but it was
wasn't-
used for other things.
Yeah.
So we finally found it. And then all of a sudden, all these movies came out. Raise the Titanic. Do this. And so everybody was watching. And so that is when the fascination and the obsession over the Titanic started.
Wow.
I
All
mean-
because we found it for the first time.
The horror of what happened was always talked about and always taught.
Sure.
But the obsession happened once they found it.
Of the whole fake people like Jack and.
No, that's James Cameron.
Gotcha. So he kind of started that back.
Yeah, James Cameron wrote that, so that was him. Also, Live Aid. Live Aid I want to talk about because Live Aid is considered one of the most revered festivals ever.
Live Aid?
Live Aid. Now, if you have not heard of Live Aid, and a lot of people think that, what is the one that in New York, the one that happened in '69? I can never remember. Janis Joplin played there, and okay, it's out of my head. See, this is what happens. So,
I'm like, what? She played at another festival?
no,
in
she
New
played
York?
at the biggest festival.
Wow.
So, anyways, Live Aid happened. Frankie, Queen, the group Queen.
Oh yeah, Freddie Mercury.
Freddie Mercury. I said Frankie. Freddie Mercury. That was his last public performance. He died in '92 of HIV, AIDS related, and that was his last major
Hurrah.
festival. He actually got that crowd going crazy. He was doing a warm up, and everything he would say, he would just do a tune, and he would put the thing out, and the entire
Stadium.
audience sang his song
And it-
and sang it perfectly. And he riled them up so much that it became one of the best live performances ever.
Oh, I bet.
You
That
should
sounds
watch
lit.
it. You should watch it. I mean, it is amazing. I still get goosebumps because of how good that was, Live Aid.
I actually just found out that sensation. Here's my did you know for the day in case you didn't. If you're a person who gets goosebumps when you listen to music, that's called a sensation called aphasia. And only about 35% of people in the world experience that.
So I experienced it.
do I.
That's interesting because I never knew that. And I bet you meet people who are really deep into music.
And creative. You have more creative cognitive function in your brain than anybody else does. And it
Until you hit 50.
But it kept happening to me. Like, I'd listen to a song, then another song would come on, and then
I'll
another song
cry
would come on.
instantly.
Me too, and then I'll get goosebumps. And so, you know what? I just
Yeah.
wanted to look it up. And I figured
So-
I found it out.
One of the other cool things as we're coming to an end is Oprah. Let's talk about Oprah Winfrey.
You get a call.
Okay.
You get a call.
Let's talk about the billionaire we know as Oprah Winfrey. The multi-billionaire. I mean, the woman's worth more money than God, pretty much. Her show, the Oprah Winfrey Show,
Uh-huh.
went national in 1986.
When did it become a network?
Oh, not until 2000.
Okay, gotcha.
So Oprah, there's Car in Your Seat, that was all in the 80s. And then through the 90s and stuff. She did not create her, I knew the name of her network. Well, there's but Harpo Productions
Wow.
came out in the late 90s.
I don't think I've ever heard of Harpo.
Harpo, yeah, they did, Harpo did, gosh, my brain is gone. Color Purple.
Oh.
And so
okay.
Harpo Productions came out, and then she started her show got so syndicated. She actually, Ellen in 1989 came out on the Oprah Winfrey Show.
Wow. Well,
So,
collaboration.
I mean, the character Ellen.
And, okay, so, I'm so sorry. I didn't want to say Woodstock.
Thank you.
Because
it is Woodstock.
I didn't want to say that, and
Why?
then him look at me and be like, that wasn't in New York.
No, that was in New York.
And so in my head, I'm thinking, like, dude, it's Woodstock, man. 'Cause,
It's
like,
not.
everybody played
Well,
that.
you
But I
should.
didn't.
I just couldn't.
But
put
I
the word
didn't.
together.
Have you ever had that feeling where you feel like you're right, but you didn't want to get embarrassed? That was me just
Okay,
now.
so it's not Manhattan.
Okay.
It's actually New York
Right.
State.
Okay.
So it's up in the middle because one of the did you knows, and I think I talked about this the other time, is New York has the third most population in the world or in the country, and 70% of them live in Manhattan.
Which is
Well,
crazy.
Manhattan's what 12 by 12 miles or something like that, and then there's the rest of New York.
Which is so crazy.
Which is bigger, which is like I think it was the 7th largest state. So there's Rochester, Albany, all of these different towns in there, but it's completely like here, where there are miles between.
And Lisa, I'm glad you understand how I feel. And William, yes, you are right.
What?
He said The Color Purple with Oprah.
Yeah, that's what I said. I turned around to her and I go, she did The Color Purple. So that put Harpo on the max.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but she was also on the movie.
So I know she had a really good friend, Kelly. What was her name? Oprah?
Oprah's best friend is Gail.
Gail, that's
Yeah,
what it
is Gail. And Gail's a TV personality.
Oh,
I mean,
okay.
she's like
Was she already famous? Like, when Oprah kind of
Nah,
started?
maybe the same time.
Okay.
And she's still not as famous as
And
Oprah.
she's on the Today Show? Or the World News?
Yeah, one of those. She's news. And then Oprah has been with the same guy forever, Stedman.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
She never talks about her
Well,
husband.
they're not married. I don't think
Oh.
they're married. They might be, but I've seen pictures of him, but I've never
That's
seen
like
him.
Whoopi Goldberg. She says she doesn't want to get married because she doesn't want somebody else in her house.
I am watching. I was watching a show, and she was in it, And it's new.
Whoopi Goldberg?
Yeah.
Did you also know, second fun fact of the day, Whoopi Goldberg has never had eyebrows. I want you to look up a picture of Whoopi Goldberg when she was like my age. She's never had eyebrows. Never.
I love her.
Me too.
Oh, she's in the new Sister Act coming out.
Yes.
Yeah. So, well, it wouldn't be Sister Act without her, which is an 80s movie.
Wow, is it really?
The first one.
Wow.
I believe. I'll have to look it up just to make sure. But fun fact that I told her about with Sister Act. Sister Act 2 spawned one of our biggest stars that we have singing. And I'm talking, it's a child. Lauryn Hill.
Oh my God, you did tell me that. That's crazy.
Lauryn Hill was the lead child
like
in the
choir
film,
singer?
like one of the choir singers, and her mother wouldn't let her, and it was this big old thing. But that's Lauryn Hill from the Fugees.
That's super lit. I love that, and I love the Fugees too.
So, but you know, like I said, we could go on and on and on. I've got books down here. We've got all of the different political things you guys can come in and take a look at during the 80s, the Clintons, because yes, Clintons, because you got to remember, it isn't all about Hillary. She did have a husband who was president for 8 years, who had an affair with Monica Lewinsky. Speaking of which, didn't we bring the purple dress? No.
You're so funny. Tell me why I genuinely.
Or blue dress.
Tell me why I genuinely turned around and was like, "Where is the dress at?" You're so funny.
Does it
took
still
me a
have the
second.
spot? No.
You're
So
funny.
we have fun stuff like that you guys can check on. But 80s is big for me and Steve. Steve was in his late teens, early 20s in the 80s, and so we hunt for 80s stuff because in our life, the 80s is everything.
And even though again I didn't grow up there, I wish I did.
And it's funny because we always talk. I talk to the parents that come in here and the older people that come in here, and we laugh because the kids are on the phone taking pictures and stuff, and we are too. But we're saying, yeah, but when they're 50, we can go back and say, yes, you did.
Literally, yes, you did. You did do that.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Good luck doing that with us.
80 for sure.
Or I tell them, because this is the truth, you guys. You have no money. In the 80s, you're a kid, so you look for food in the phone. You look for money in the pay phones.
LOL, the little slot.
Yeah,
the so
money
funny.
that was done. But I'm
that's
talking
so
over,
great.
and we're just going about. So
oh no, we're right on time. You're
give
good.
them our spiel.
Well, I hope you guys had fun with us today because we sure had lots of fun with you. 80s again are one of our favorite times, so make sure you swing on in and check and see what we have to offer.
They came about too.
Which they're really popular right now. Like they're making a comeback.
For some reason, well, that's because the
Are they
80s
going on-
kids are now adults with their kids, so they listen to it when their kids were being raised, so their kids grew up knowing
Now,
it.
for sure.
That's the same reason I one of my favorite songs in the whole world is Terry Jacks. It just left my head. Seasons in the Sun.
Oh, that's such a good song.
I know, but I heard it from my dad growing up. So this is what happens, and because this is actually more contemporary music, and they're still alive doing music.
Are they like doing a comeback tour or something like that?
Are they? Oh,
Yeah.
I
No.
don't know. I know NSYNC is supposed to.
But make sure you like, comment, and subscribe on Facebook or Instagram. And TikTok we're still kind of working on, but
New Kids on the Block.
it's not really our biggest priority right now.
Also, we are on Threads, but
Yes.
there is no live ability on that yet. So,
It will be soon, though, I'm assuming.
yep, LL Cool J down there.
And we
can
forgot
see
Run
him down
DMC
there. Run.
and
Oh, and I have the
Beastie
packets
Boys,
and
too.
everything. Well, let me tell you real quick before you go. We have these little grab bags from 80s like magazines and stuff that were like destroyed and stuff. So we saved the coolest parts of them, stickers, posters, stuff like that. And we did these little grab bags, and they're all 1980s, early 90s.
Yep.
Hip hop and
Assortment of music.
We got Run DMC, Beastie Boys, LL Cool J. There's all sorts in here. So
Heck yeah.
come in and get them. They're fun. I hate throwing paper away, and these can be hung or
Oh,
put
absolutely.
in a scrapbook.
I'll scrap up for sure.
Yes. So, anyways, come in, talk to us. If you like to talk about the 80s, then you'll love me. And
And you get to read all these cool magazines.
yeah, because we have everything. Anyways, thank you guys so much, and we hope to see you in the store soon.
See you tomorrow.
Bye. Okay, where are we going? There
Bottom
we go.
right.